Hi everyone. Today I will just give you a brief overview, and the main thing we will do the activities regarding that invoice verification, credit memo, and subsequent debit and subsequent credit. Mainly in this video I have focused on how to create respective documents in SAP because and I will give you one brief overview about what document is and when do you create generally. Okay. So first I will create one PO with reference to PO just to initiate the activities. Okay, the PO against I create the document. Okay, first we create the purchase order, and then we will create the goods receipt and invoice verification, and then I will explain you how to create credit memo and respect to subsequent activities which we can do with Miro. Now I'm going to create purchase order with reference to another purchase order. See, in this purchase order, when you create an invoice verification, then mainly you have to ensure in this invoice tab. If you activate this GR based invoice verification, then you should have to perform goods receipt before invoice verification. That's the process called three-way match. For example, what is three-way match? Three-way match means PO, GR, and then invoice receipt. This is three-way match, and if it is two-way match process, it will be PO and then IR. Two-way match generally we use for consumables where you don't have to maintain the inventory, and it may not be required for you to do the goods receipt to do the tracking. Three-way match process we use almost all for all direct materials, and some of the materials, although you don't maintain the inventory, you need the tracking of the goods receipt. Okay, now I will explain about the three-way match process, which is mainly we use for all the many materials, because whether you maintain the inventory or not, goods receipt will be using as a tracking of your goods, how much you have received before doing the invoice receipt and the payment. Okay. Okay. Now coming to PO screen, we have come to the PO screen. Here you can see the details like tax code and GR based invoice verification. If you activate GR based invoice verification, you have to perform GR before doing IR, otherwise system won't be accepted. Okay, tax code, here we give the tax code, and as you know this, how much quantity you are ordering and what is the net price of each item. For example, this is card, each card what is the cost. Okay, all these details will be performed. Okay, now coming to this, I will provide some input tax code. 19% is. Once you give the tax code, you can see the tax amount, how much tax we are going to give. The same details we are able to see in conditions. Condition tab, what is the price, how much cash discount. Okay, now the cash discount and all, we can do the one normal activity, like for example, I will give the payment terms, payable to net directly. The basic process we can perform. Okay, what the basic price we got, and we can change the delivery date. Okay, now I'm saving the purchase order. This is our purchase order number. Save the purchase order number, copy it, and then go to Mego, where we do the goods receipt. This is the Mego screen. We can see the goods receipt. You have to select the goods receipt and against purchase order. This is our purchase order. I have given the purchase order. Then click on enter. Or the quantity from the PO, it will be copied, and here the quantity. If you have received 500 quantity, then you can do the goods receipt for 500. If you have received 300, how much quantity you have received physically, the same quantity have to be maintained here. In this where tab, we can see the movement type and the plant and the storage location and all the recipient, for example the test storekeeper. Okay, and the PO details. If it is a consumable against cost center and all, we will see the account assignment. As it is a direct material, we won't have any cost center details. And then you need to click on item OK. We can see the PO and item OK. Once you click on that item OK, then click on check button. Okay. You just click on check button. You can find the message as document OK. Once you get the message document OK, click on post. Here we can maintain the delivery note, like delivery note 345, whatever the delivery note you got that from vendor. So these details we can maintain, and then click on post. See, you can see the successful message, material document is posted. Okay. Now the transaction code Miro, where we do the invoice verification. Okay. Before going for invoice verification, I will give a brief overview about invoice verification and other activities like invoice verification and against that I will write subsequent debit, because these two are almost similar, because invoice verification will be created whenever you want to pay the money to the vendor, and subsequent debit also will be useful whenever you want to pay the amount to vendor. Okay, that's why I can tell like both are almost equal. The behavior, the mode of nature will be equal. At what circumstances we use, I will explain you that part. Coming to credit memo, it will be equal to subsequent credit. For your understanding, credit, you can just for your blind understanding, credit memo and subsequent credit, the accounting entries will be similar. And invoice verification and subsequent debit accounting entries will be similar. Generally, when we create invoice verification, when you want to verify the amount against a PO to pay to the vendor. This is general invoice verification we create against PO or service entry sheet or material document. These all purposes you created a PO for receiving respective goods or services from vendor. Once you receive that goods, you will verify how much amount I need to pay and you will pay the invoice verification. That's a very direct statement. Almost we are all are aware about the invoice verification, how the process will happen. When we use the subsequent debit, for example, I will tell you one case. There are several similar cases will be there. Just give you an outline. With the vendor, for example, against PO and all, as I told you directly. Example, you received goods from vendor, you verified the invoice given by vendor to pay the amount. That's it. Coming to subsequent debit, both will be in the same way. Subsequent debit, invoice verification. Okay, both are in same path. How subsequent debit? These are all correction kind of payment. Vendor has sent you an invoice to pay as additional charges after few months payment due to different reasons. Maybe you would have told like when you are sending that goods, I had spent some additional toll taxes or toll charges which was suddenly was increased because of certain reasons, or the petrol was increased, the price was increased drastically because of the travel of 1500 kilometers. For me around 5000 rupees additional charges was happened, but at the time of invoice I had given that invoice based on PO. If it is given at the time of invoice verification, we can include that amount along with invoice verification. But the vendor has sent an invoice for the correction. For example, from last 3 goods I have sent the goods, but for the 3 around 5000 rupees additional charges will happen for me. Can you pay the amount? In that circumstances, we create the subsequent debit. That's why the business scenarios will be the vendor additional charges. Whenever you want to pay, the subsequent debit will be used. Okay. And coming to credit memo, I'm giving the same color because just for your understanding, the both are coming under similar category. Okay. Okay, I will give green. I will just give invoice verification as a red because we are going to lose, right? We are going to money to vendor, means it looks like we are paying the amount. It's lost to our pocket. That's why I have given red color. And green, always we want money, right? We need somebody has to give something for us. The credit memo means that is a profit. That is a profit for us. Invoice verification and subsequent debit means we are paying to the vendor, either for buying your goods or some corrections, like your vendor has requested to pay some additional charges because of some certain local charges, or certain freight charges, additional charges, or petrol changes. Otherwise the lorry, the transport union has increased the price drastically, or because of certain union meetings. There are different reasons will be there. Sometimes vendor will ask you the additional payment. Otherwise he would have told, like as per our agreement at that point of time, whenever there are certain corrections, like for example the material was fixed for 10 rupees, the price was increased to 11, but at the time of invoice verification he has sent you the invoice of 10 rupees. That's why he will request you that I have sent you like some 10,000 items, or can you pay 10,000 additional charges. Our company has decided to pay that amount, then that amount will be paid through subsequent debit, because the goods are already received, invoice verification was already done. At that time the subsequent debit will be used. You just know the purpose, at what time the similar scenario will come, at that time we can map the same scenario. Okay. And coming to credit memo, the credit memo will be directly like if you want or charge money from the vendor. Whenever you receive a goods from vendor, then credit memo will be created. Example, lot of things will be there. For example, you have received the goods and identified all the goods or some of the goods are damaged, and you are returning the product goods back to the vendor. In that circumstances, we will create credit memo for the goods amount which are equal to the return goods. Okay. For example, you have received 100 quantity of goods and 20 quantity you are returning to the vendor. We have already done the invoice verification. At that time, for the 20 goods, we do the credit memo. That amount will be coming to our bank account. Means our accounts, in that circumstances, the accounting entries will be vendor account will get debit and respect to GRIR will get credit. Okay. And also, as per the agreement, if vendor doesn't provide the materials or services within the delivery date or within quality etc. parameters, customer can send credit note to vendor to pay the penalty. Okay, this is another example. For example, when we are working in IT team also, for example, you have to resolve the issues as per the SLAs. If you are not able to meet the SLAs, then the customer can send you the credit note. This much delay, as per our agreement, 10% or 5% of the contract amount I'm sending as a credit memo. We have to pay the penalty. These are several examples. The overall you have to understand, credit memo will be created whenever you want to charge from the vendor. Otherwise, you have paid additional amount to the vendor. 100 rupees is the price, but you have paid 120 rupees. At that time, the 20 rupees can come. One live examples I will give you. For example, you bought an item in Big Bazaar which is equal to the 1000 rupees. After you go home, you identify that that respective t-shirt is not suitable for you. At that time, what you do, you come to the big bazaar again and you will give to that shopkeeper, I want to return this product. At that time, you would have faced this. The shopkeeper will take you that t-shirt and he will take you your bill and he will create a credit memo and he will give you the 1,000 rupees credit memo to you. What is use of that credit memo? With that 1,000 rupees credit memo, you can buy any goods equal to 1,000 rupees. And also if you buy 1,500, then 1,000 rupees he will deduct and 500 rupees only he will charge from you. Okay, that is the use of credit memo. In same way, I think we hope you understand it's a completely reverse to subsequent credit, subsequent debit. Subsequent credit will be the reversal of subsequent credit. Means whenever you want to charge or receive the correction amount from vendor, you will create subsequent credit. Okay, what exactly this one? For example, you have, there is an amount, items, 100 items you bought and you paid 10,000 rupees. After 2 months, as per your agreement or some corrections like that, you would have a charge like certain materials are not working as per the amount, as per the specification. For example, the battery is supposed to work for 10 days, but around some 15 batteries within 5 days only it was not working. You can negotiate with vendor that as per our agreement and as per the guidelines and specifications you have mentioned for the respective battery, it should work for 20 days, although I work for continuously 24/7. But around 15 batteries I removed and I replaced with new batteries within a week. This is not at all acceptable. I won't continue the contract again if you do such type of things. Then in that circumstances, that vendor can ask you that please send a credit, subsequent credit to me. I will pay that 15 amount and I will ensure you these type of things won't happen in the future. I have given you just an example of batteries. It can be any amount, any services. If you want to take some amount from vendor, you have paid additional amount and after 2 months you can get back to him. Otherwise, these type of performance issues which will come to know after 1 month or 2 months, after 3 months. Okay, in that conditions, you can, if you have some corrected amount, you can create a subsequent credit. It will be almost similar to credit memo, but credit memo will be the immediate action which we take. Subsequent credit will be the subsequent, you can see in that name itself, slightly corrections. At that time we use this subsequent credit. Okay, it also some corrections. Example, you want to charge the amount from vendor about the poor performance of batteries which were bought from the vendor few months back and the payment was also done. Payment, everything was completed, and then you have identified like the performance is not good. At that time you can create a subsequent credit. For that amount vendor will give you back. Okay, these are the just generic examples I have given. The overall what you can understand: invoice verification and subsequent debit, or whenever you pay the amount to the vendor, credit memo and subsequent credit whenever you receive the amount from the vendor. This is the generic thing. The best example, whatever definitions and all you can read somewhere, but this is the overall for your understanding. you can understand that subsequent credit or subsequent debit, these we never create without an invoice document, because for that invoice document only, after completion of invoice everything, if you want to do any corrections, then we go for subsequent debit or subsequent credit. We never create directly a subsequent debit and subsequent credit. It's like it's a sequel. You are going to create a sequel movie without your first movie. It looks like that. That's why whenever you create an invoice, for that invoice, for that credit memo, if you want to make any corrections, then you will go for subsequent debit and subsequent credit. Okay, now we go for to SAP. How we are going to do? We are coming to we are in the invoice verification screen. Here you can see some certain important fields like invoice date, posting date, the reference. Generally we give the PO number, the respective details, and here we have to create Ignis document we need to give. Okay. See, the invoice verification can be created Ignis, PO or delivery note, bill of lading, service entry sheet, vendor. The different options are there. Which mostly we use purchase order, and today I will tell about the purchase order. Okay. The invoice date is 18/03/2016, the same date. The reference, the PO number, you can give the which PO we have created just now. Just I'm going to PO display screen. By date you can see. Why I'm opening the PO screen, we can see in purchase order history what exactly happened. See, this is the latest PO which we have created. See the purchase order history. Just now we have received the 500 quantity, right? The respective goods received was updated. Now we will do the invoice verification. The reference is invoice verification one. I'm giving here PO number. Here you can see the option of goods plus planned delivery cost, or only goods or only planned. What is the exactly mean? I will give a brief overview. When you create PO, we have a delivery cost. Planned delivery cost means like freight charges or any octroi, any charges which you are paying to another vendor, or any specific charges, delivery cost kind of thing. If you want to do the invoice for only planned delivery cost, then you have to select only planned delivery cost. If you want to do only goods, you have to do the only goods. If you want to do both at a time, for example, generally we use both at a time when you are paying the delivery costs and goods both to the same vendor. If we have a planned delivery cost to separate vendor, then obviously we have to create a separate invoices for planned delivery cost and goods. Okay. Okay, now I'm taking the both because we have given only one vendor. That's why I have selected goods plus planned delivery cost. Both we are paying at the same time. After you give the PO, you just click on enter. System will copy the details as per the goods receipt. Because in goods receipt we have taken 500 quantity. The same 500 quantity you have received here, and you are going to invoice for that. Okay, here in payment the baseline date you have to give, and in this delivery cost if you have any unplanned delivery cost. When do you use this unplanned delivery cost? As I have explained you, at the time of PO, the delivery cost for as per the general expectation they would have decided as 1000 rupees as a transportation charges. But during invoice verification, the vendor may give you like 1500 because of some reasons the 500 was increased. That 500 we can give here. Okay, any unplanned delivery cost. And in many procurement areas we can see like in PO we don't maintain the transportation charges because we don't know at that point of time when you create a PO what will be the transportation charges. That's why vendor will send you the transportation charges at the time of invoice verification. then we give the details in unplanned delivery cost. Okay, this is the one more of the important fields in invoice verification. Okay, I have given this, and always you have to ensure this means the selection, the line should be selected, then only it will be, the process will be followed. And you ensure this, here the transaction will be the invoice, because we are creating the invoice verification. Okay, and then you can just drag it here. Here the tax code will be there. Then click on calculate tax. As soon as you click on the calculate tax, the respective tax amount will be visible here, and then you can see in the right hand side top you will have the total price. You just copy that price and add in the amount. Okay, because the same equal amount you have to give here, and then click on simulate. These are just vendor details. Okay, see here you can verify what are the details are coming, like vendor account is going to credit, and GRIR account is going to debit, and tax amount is going to debit. Right? You can see the green light, there is no messages, and then post. Okay, invoice is posted. Come to PO display, just replicate the PO, go to the details, see in history goods receipt is updated and invoice receipt is updated. Just for your information, I will show you the accounting entries of goods receipt. Document info, FI documents, accounting document. See, what are the accounting entries? Stock account means inventory, debit. GRIR clearing account, credit. Invoice receipt, how will be the entries? Follow on documents, accounting document. See, the vendor account, credit. GRIR debit, because in goods receipt it was credit, right? Opposite entry, debit. And the input tax will be the debit. Okay. Now what happened? You have received the goods of 500, but you decided as 100 quantity. For example, the total 500 quantity you want to send the credit memo. All the materials were damaged. You want to send the credit memo for 500. Okay. At that time, what we do? You have to select the credit memo first. Once you create memo, it is asking for the invoice date. Okay. The credit memo also can be created against the PO. Credit memo. Give the PO. See, as per the reference, PO reference, the entire quantity has come. If you want to reverse entire 500, you can do the 500 quantity, you can send, create the credit memo. Otherwise, you have only 300 quantity or 200 quantity, you want to create a credit memo. Means all materials are good, only 50 materials were damaged. Okay. At that time, for example, you will see that the real-time scenario. Whenever the entire materials will be damaged, it's a rare case, right? What will I do? The 500, you have to change the price manually if you want to do the partial credit memo. If you want to do the direct credit memo, we can keep the same amount. Okay. The 500, I'm doing the credit memo for that. The same process, click on calculate tax and then do that entire amount, see this, and simulate. Just for your price understanding, I am keeping the same amount. I am doing the entire credit memo. If you want to do the partial, you have to change the quantity and price manually according to the calculation. Okay, simulate and then save. Means what you have understood, the invoice and credit memo, the process will be same. Only you have to select the credit memo and you can see the opposite entries also here. See the purchase order history, you can see the 500 minus. Because what I have done invoice verification for the 36,000 and then do the credit memo. You can see the opposite entries for the credit memo. Vendor account is debit. See, vendor account is positive, debit. GRIR is credit, and then input tax is credit. Means what we have done, exactly we have nullified that amount. Means now there is no invoice was done, only goods is it, because these two are nullified each other. Okay. Okay. Now we will see the subsequent debit and subsequent credit. Okay. For doing the subsequent debit and subsequent credit, just I have replicated the invoice again. I have created one more fresh invoice. Now credit memo is completed. I have created a subsequent direct invoice. I have created for 500 quantity. Now these two are nullified. Now we came to the place of GR 500 quantity was done and IR 500 quantity was done. Now we are in this place. Because these two are nullified, one credit memo and debit memo, I have done one more fresh IR with 500. Okay. Now what we do, I will do the subsequent debit. Subsequent debit means I want to pay some more amount. As per vendor's request, I have to pay 1000 more. That is a request, right? You have to select subsequent debit and select the document date and the reference you can give like subsequent debit. You can give SD. Okay. Give the PO against which you want to create. See the 500 has come for that PO. For that 500 amount only, 500 quantity only, you want to pay some additional amount. How much you want to pay? 1000. Okay. For 1000. Do you want to pay taxes? The tax code also we can give. 190. This is the additional amount which you are going to pay to your vendor. If you have already done the invoice, additional amount you are going to pay. Simulate it. As you have given the PO number, everything will be tracked. Okay. Now save it. Now subsequent debit is created. Now coming to PO, just see the display. Go to PO history. See, subsequent debit is visible here. Means the same 500 quantity you have paid 1000 addition. We will see the accounting documents. This will be similar to invoice verification. See, vendor account, credit. You can see that inventory of raw material means stock account. Stock account get debit and input tax is debit. Here for in case of subsequent debit, what you have seen an additional entry, that is stock account, inventory account. Because I will tell you an example here. Here what happened in case of GR, stock account, debit. Debit means plus. Okay, plus GRIR clearing credit. Credit means minus. When you do it for 500 quantity in IR, what happened? Vendor account get credit, GRIR clearing account debit. Means this GRIR clearing account and these two are completely nullified. Okay. This is the generic entry. For our price wise, if you want to tell, the same thing we can write here. 36,000 debit, 36,000 credit. Here what happened? 36,000 credit and vendor account. Here you can see that tax amount also there, right? I will show you that amount also during invoice verification. See that input tax 6,840. The total amount vendor it is going to pay 48,000, 42,840, 42,840 credit and 36,000, which is opposite to our GRIR clearing account, debit and input tax. Because the tax has come in, the amount is come here, right? Input tax is debit. How much? 6,840 debit. Okay, means 10 different colors. 10 different colors. GRIR, invoice receipt. Okay, and how the entries in the credit memo. During credit memo, the entries are completely, it has come to opposite to this amount. Vendor account debit, okay, GRIR credit, input tax credit. This is just opposite account to what we have seen in invoice verification. Okay. Okay. Now coming to subsequent debit. How the accounting entries are there. Here already GRIR clearing account, everything was nullified as we have done the again an invoice receipt. That's why the vendor account will get credit, but the additional charges of 1,000 rupees will be loaded on material. That's what we have to understand. How much we have done? Subsequent debit we have done for 1,000 euro per 500 quantity. Okay. What the subsequent debit? How it was happened? The accounting entries are vendor account, how much amount? 1190 credit and stock account. We are use stock or inventory, anything like we use whatever it is. Inventory account, how much you have increased, that 1000 is debit, and input tax, we are going to pay the tax also, right? That 190 is debit. Here what you have understood, the subsequent debit, the entries are similar to invoice verification, but in invoice verification, if you have a GRIR clearing account or consumption account, whatever, how it will be directly, if you want to do, you have increased the price, that's why that increased price was hit the stock account. Okay, now coming to subsequent credit. Now we will create that. You can understand that what happened, you are going to create the subsequent credit. When you create a subsequent credit, you have paid some additional amount to vendor, or certain materials are not up to the quality as per agreement. In that circumstances, we can discuss with the vendor, and I'm going to send subsequent credit. You just adjust that amount, because among 500 materials, around 50 materials are not working up to the mark. That's why for each material, at least 10 rupees, 10 euros, whatever the currency, 500 I'm going to send as a subsequent credit. Okay, give the invoice date, same PO, we will give it as a subsequent credit, and then give your PO. Without reference PO also can directly send, then it will be a generic, it will load on the material, whatever the material you have to give, the details, everything you have to give. Okay, for the 500 quantity, you are going to send the subsequent credit. For the total quantity you have received, overall materials, what happened, around 50, overall you want to nullify, what you call, for entire items, you want to send a subsequent credit, you want to take, for all these materials, I want to take this much amount. If you want to take only for 50 materials, that also you can do. It will be loaded on the material. You have to check that material, how much account it is going to hit, those things all you have to take care while creating the subsequent credit. What they have decided, 500. For 500 they want to send as a subsequent credit. For that also, if you want to pay, they will pay the taxes, the return tax, they have to take the return tax also, right? Okay, see here the 595. The overall process will be similar, but the accounting entries will be different, and according to the selection of subsequent credit and debit, your accounting entries will be changing, the debit and credit, everything. Okay, now simulate. See, the vendor account is going to debit, vendor account is getting debit, means during payment it will get credit, our bank account will get debit. The bulbs, like the whatever the material you are going to take, the material stock account, on that material 500 credit, stock value will come down, right? Because you are going to, for example, 100 rupees you have paid, 5 rupees you are getting back, means the price will be 95 rupees. That's why here it is the negative credit. The tax you have already paid 95 rupees debit, now you are going to get that 95 back. Okay, then save it. Now coming to our PO, item details. See, you can see that subsequent adjustments, like this 500 quantity for 500 rupees. Okay, 500 euros for same 500 quantity, you are just accumulating that price. See, in the document also, when you go to subsequent debit, see, subsequent debit is looking like an invoice. Subsequent debit during display, it looks like a credit memo. For 500 value, you are sending. See that following documents. See that vendor account, 595 debit, you are sending 500. 500 you want to send as a subsequent debit. Sorry, subsequent credit. What are the accounting under? Vendor account 595, because 95 is the tax. 595 debit. Stock account 500 credit, and input tax 95 credit. Okay. Finally, the vendor account wise invoice verification and subsequent debit will be similar, and coming to subsequent credit and credit memo, the accounting entries, the vendor account will get debit and the stock account will get credit. In case of subsequent adjustments, the respective amount will be loaded on material. If you are doing, because when you are doing invoice verification initially, invoice verification or credit memo, we take the reference to the PO which was already goods receipt was done. That's why the GRIR clearing account will hit. In case of see the credit memo and invoice verification, you can see the GRIR clearing account, which is open as per the goods received. We have a 3600 credit account is open, right? That should be nullified. That's why IR will take care. Okay, when the credit memo was created, the both are nullified. That's why I created a new invoice receipt. I hope you understand how to create a subsequent debit and subsequent credit. For certain quantity, if you want to create, you have to change the quantity, that amount, how much quantity you want to send. Manually you can change it and create it. You can observe when you see the display of the subsequent debit, it is looking as invoice, and when you create when you display the document of subsequent credit, it looks like a credit memo. The both are vendor accounts wise will behave same. During credit memo and invoice verification, if you have done in 2M match directly, it will load on the against that material account. In case of goods receipt, the GRIR clearing account will be playing the role during invoice verification and credit memo. So you can see the overall sequence what we have done. The first I have done the goods receipt for entire 500 quantity. Then I have done invoice receipt. I have explained how to create that invoice receipt. Then I created a credit memo just to show you how to create a credit memo and how the entries are nullified. Okay. To explain the subsequent debit and subsequent credit, I have done one more invoice verification, means the process is completed according to the P2P cycle. You have done the payment, everything was done. After few days, just imagine after few days you got a requirement like some certain amount you have to pay to the vendor additionally 1000 euros. Then I have taught you how to create a subsequent debit, and then 500 you want to take back from the vendor. Then I have taught you how to create a subsequent credit. I hope you are clear about the concepts, how it will be created. and I have explained you certain examples, the conditions when you're supposed to create a subsequent debit and subsequent credit, subsequent debit, and even the credit memo. I hope you are clear, and you can see that help.sap.com and any area to see that exact definitions if you need some more clarity. Thanks for watching this video. Bye.